4 things you need before you start travel nursing. All 4 of these things are very important. Some of them are more obvious than others, but I highly recommend watching this full video because number 4 is often forgotten, and in my opinion, it is the most important. Number 1 is a nursing license. Like I said, some of these are very obvious. Your nursing license, it can be a single state license. You can have multiple single state license, or you can have a compact state license. As long as you are licensed in one of the states in the US, you can travel as a travel nurse in that state, or multiple states if you have a compact license. Number 2 is actually kind of debatable, but number 2 is adequate nursing experience. For me, my answer is usually always 2 years. However, everything isn't always an exact. As nurses, we should all know that. 2 years is a good time in my opinion. I know from my experience, the first year as a travel nurse, it was a lot to take in. It wasn't until into my second year that I started really connecting the dots, and I started truly understanding why I was doing certain things. I knew to do them, but I just didn't know the full extent of why I was doing them. And it took time for me and my brain to kind of connect those dots. I just think also that 2 years is a good time because you don't want to rush it. A lot of times I tell people it's a personal decision to know when you are ready or not. And oftentimes the question I ask people is, put yourself almost in a worst case scenario as a traveler. And it might not even be a worst case scenario. This might just be kind of a common scenario. And that scenario is, imagine yourself as a nurse as you are right now. You go into a new facility. This facility is different than the one you're used to, uses a different charting system, has a few different policies, a few different techniques. The IVs that they use are completely different. The supply rooms are set up completely different. You don't know where everything is. You barely remember where the break room is. You definitely don't know where the cafeteria is. And you are a nurse and you have only had one shift of orientation. Your second shift, you are on your own with very limited oversight. How do you think you would provide care? Would it be quality care? Would it be quality care in a timely manner? It's your license. You worked very hard going through nursing school. You don't want to jeopardize your license. So it's really a personal question in my opinion. Do you think you are ready to put yourself in that potential scenario where you are in a new environment with all these new variables that you are not used to with very limited orientation? You always want to be able to fall back on your nursing experience. That's one thing I tell people when you're a traveler. Your main goal is to provide quality care. You might not chart it perfectly. You can always go back and chart, or you can always put a narrative note, but your goal is to keep your patient alive and provide the best care possible. And without adequate nursing experience, that is very hard to do. Number 3 is a reliable source of transportation. This one's actually pretty important. And actually, I kind of learned a valuable lesson from this here recently. But not to go off into that too much right now. A reliable source of transportation, it doesn't have to be your personal transportation. Maybe where you're going, they have great public transportation, most of the day or whatnot. You just don't want to be driving your old beater across the country and then the transmission go out, or something big happen. You end up in some town that you don't know anybody, that doesn't have many resources, and that can be very costly and also dangerous as well. So I highly recommend having a reliable source of transportation. Now the fourth one here is often forgotten. I highly recommend this before you get started, and that is an emergency fund. I know some people have started travel nursing without it, And in my opinion, it is very risky because we take risk as travel nurses. We drive across the country. It's not cheap to do that. You've got, your gas, plus your hotel stay, plus, food along the way. Then when you get there, you have to pay first month's rent and a security deposit, all kind of stuff. There's lots of expenses. Plus, you never know when something doesn't turn out the way it was supposed to be. Next thing you know, you've got an extra, $1,000 that you owe or have to pay, and you don't want to be on the other side of the country or either, several hours away from home where you know nobody and you're stranded. So I highly recommend at least 3 months of expenses at a minimum. Probably, if you want to put a dollar amount, I would say at least $5,000 at a minimum. And the further away from home you go, I would want that amount even higher, just because of being so far from home and it possibly being more costly to make your way back home if anything were to happen. I'd like to ask you, your opinion on the emergency fund. If you've already traveled, how much did you have as an emergency fund before you started? If not, how many months are you considering, having saved up before you get started traveling? So I hope this video helps, and I will be making more soon. Thank you.